academically, what does it look like from infancy to pre-K, TK? What does it look like socially and emotionally?
If your child is in a preschool setting, they're going to be learning things that are specific to their age group, to their infant classroom, specific to their toddler classroom.
But how do you approach strangers and how do you approach friends and different, that's just as important. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Brewing Bright Minds. I'm here with Miss Dom.
Good morning.
And we are really excited to do a deeper dive into the value of preschool education, but also what are our kids really learning when they are in preschool? There are so many things to cover. And generally, I think we want to discuss academically, what does it look like from infancy to pre-K, TK? What does it look like socially and emotionally? What does it look like value-wise? What are the values we want to instill in our kids? Work habits? Why is the preschool classroom conducive to all of that learning, so that parents are aware, educators interested in going into the industry are aware. And really, to me, it is this tiny little microcosm of a system that really works for kids and learning and developing them into really top-notch citizens in this little society. And I think there's so much value in the magic that happens in these classrooms that can be translated into school-age classrooms and beyond.
Yeah, and even life skills. Because I feel like
absolutely
everything you learn in a preschool classroom, you're learning for life.
Yes.
So it's things that they're learning so young, and you might think that, they're 2 years old, they're not going to remember this, or they're not going to use this, but they will. They'll catch on.
Yes, absolutely. And then I think that's what there's a lot of back and forth between parents and educators and ideas about what is an appropriate expectation and expectation of kids at certain ages, because of course every child is different. Every child develops at a different rate. However, there's also expectations we should uphold for our kids so that they can reach them.
Yeah.
If you just allow them, well, they're just two, they'll get it eventually. Well, no, you can really prompt them and encourage them, and they can reach those strides earlier on. And actually, they really love those challenges.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note too that milestones, some milestones need the help of a caregiver to reach.
Absolutely.
Like tying shoes is a good one. That's not something it's something a child has to be taught. And yeah, they need some guidance from us.
Absolutely. And it's really important for teachers and caregivers, because everything that a teacher does in the classroom can also be translated at home with the caregiver or parents as well. That's why this is so important, so that we're all on the same page in terms of how do we really provide a stimulating learning environment for our kids that meets their needs in so many levels in every domain. And that's what we want to kind of deep dive into more so. Generally, we do want to talk about academics and cognitively. What is there to expect for infants, toddlers, preschool age, as well as pre-K, TK age? What are the social and emotional skills that we want to encourage at each stage as well? Milestones, physical development, that's always something that parents want to know and be mindful of. But I think other things that are just as important that parents may not know is maybe values. Like, what values do we really want to teach our kids so that they're set up for success to learn and work hard? And like you said, the self-care and self-sufficiency after preschool and into kinder, independent skills. Also, safety. Self-help skills in terms of washing your hands and things like that. But how do you approach strangers and how do you approach friends and different, like, that's just as important.
Right. And that's important for children who may not be in school, because a lot of the times nannies or babysitters or stay-at-home moms or dads, they'll take their child to the park or in other public museums or the zoo, things like that, just things in their area. And sometimes they need to be guided.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why parents, you can encourage them taking part in things, but what can you actively be doing as well in the moment to make the most out of all of those opportunities? I think an ongoing question for parents, and every parent and every family has to decide, is why is preschool so important for kids? What are the benefits and what are the advantages of starting so early?
Yeah, and I know we've definitely touched on this in previous episodes, but the 0 to 5 years is just so important. Because that's when 90% of a child's brain is developed, which is a crazy statistic. So they're, everything that they're learning in those 0 to 5 years is skills that they will have for the rest of their lives. And so, of course, these skills can be taught at home or in other types of care-based settings. But if your child is in a preschool setting, they're going to be learning things that are specific to their age group, to their infant classroom, specific to their toddler classroom. And it's so important that they just have that niche, their niche classroom.
And I think that it's so important because the way, just like grades are set up when you go to school age classrooms, the way that it's set up in preschool when you start from infancy and then you go into the toddler classroom, preschool and pre-K, TK, and so on, there are clear objectives and goals in all the domains of development and learning that teachers have. From a quality program, teachers have objectives for an infant to achieve before they are ready to graduate into the toddler room, and so on and so on. And so that's where it's so important, because maybe parents are not as aware in terms of what to look for, how to foster those skills and have their kids meet their potential. And so, like we keep saying, when you go to a preschool, parents, you have a partner. You have a partner in your child's development. You have a partner in terms of how are they behaving at school? What are they like at home? How do we bridge a gap? If there is a gap, how do we encourage it at home as well? And so even though you may have flexibility at work and have time to be with your child, also consider are you able to provide your child everything to make the most of their 0 to 5 years? Or could you have some support and have your child go to preschool, a quality preschool, for a couple of days a week if you have that luxury of having flexibility? Or if you're really, your career is really time consuming and you're really, really busy, then having a partner all the time is all the more important, so that you feel good, pursuing your career and showing and modeling to your child, hey, I can work hard, but also I can be a present and engaged parent and informed parent because I have partners who are specialized. Right.
And of course, this is going to look different for every single child. Every single child is so individual. And so the things that, one needs, another may not. And then there's things that generally every infant or every toddler will need and milestones to meet.
Yes. So then what you should be seeing in terms of a quality program, which we've touched upon before, that will encourage these opportunities for your kids to meet their potential, is low class sizes, or if some schools, they're larger, so they have, bigger classrooms, as long as the ratio is a lower ratio, so that there's more opportunities for individual, care or individual attention for kids throughout the day. That's a major one.
And I also want to mention that not necessarily state ratio, because there are certain states that the ratio is insanely high. Every state is different in terms of state ratio, ratio being the teacher to child. There are some states that's for infants, 1 teacher to 6 babies, 1 teacher to 3 babies, one teacher to 1 baby. You know, every single state is different. And so, of course, it's important to ask the ratio and the class sizes when you're touring a school, but seeing and also knowing what the state ratio is, so you know if it's less or.
So it's also a good sign for parents to know that if the school is choosing to have a lower ratio than the state standard, that's a great sign, because they're choosing to invest in better care. They're choosing to pay more money for staff to provide better care and quality, and that allows for more communication, because they are, you know, aware of everything that's going on with all the kids at all times. So communication is a huge one. Parents should feel like they are welcomed to communicate with teachers and administrators at all times. If you do not feel like you can ask questions at pickup, drop off, make an appointment to have a meeting at any time, then that's something to think about.
And even just communication throughout the day, making sure that there is some way to reach your child's teacher or the admin of the school.
Yes. And then also, how are they dealing with challenges or issues or discrepancies that may take place? How do they solve problems? Problems are always going to occur, but how do they manage and solve problems? Do you feel secure in that? Or do you feel like they are acting in the best interest of you, your family, your child, the school?
Also the timeline of it. If, you know, the issue happened one day and then it didn't really get talked about or started the process of resolving it until weeks later, or is it days later or the same day?
Yes, you'll get a sense of whether you are being prioritized or not. So that's a major thing.
And just feeling heard.
Yes, absolutely. Safety is a huge one. At the end of the day, you have to feel like your child is safe in the school's care, in the teacher's care. Are they taking every measure to be prepared for any, you know, emergency or anything that may take place? Are they communication protocols in place that if something was to happen, you are feeling like, you know, just as if you were there with your child? And so that's huge. That's a great something to consider when you are touring. How do they handle?
Yeah. And safety can even be things that you see inside the classroom, what the teacher is doing with the child or what the children are doing to each other. But it could also mean the area around the school and the safety measures that the building has, the area that the school is located in. Is the parking lot right outside? Things like that. There's so many things to safety.
Yes.
That is worth looking into.
Yes. So again, when you are touring and you are kind of gathering your first instincts about how does the environment feel? Does it give you the first impression of it is a safe area? They do have safety measures in place. They are well staffed so that if anything was to happen, they're prepared. Do they have communication protocols in place so that, you know, so it's all of that. You gotta have a sense that they are your child's, you know, caregiver in place of you while you're at work. So you have to feel like all those things are in place as if you were there.
And even more so, there's, you know, depending on the parent's job and how long the school is open for, sometimes these children are with us longer than 8 hours a day. And so they, you know, it's their second home. So they need to feel safe and loved for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that, so all of that is just kind of logistically, are all those things in place for your child at school to make school even like worth going to. And if they do have all those things in place, phenomenal. And then now, we think about, okay, so what is the value that's going to be added with your child being in this program? Is the program aligned with what you want to teach your kids? As if you were at home, in terms of, you know, what kind of person are you going to be? Because they are an infant. They are one. They are two. They are just soaking up and watching teachers modeling, you know, behaviors and interactions and values. They're actively learning all of those things.
And that's really important because every school has similar values, but also different. And even if, you know, this school down the street and this school over here, they have 5 of the same values, but then there's one that's off, that could make or break a parent's decision. And so parents need to take all of that into consideration. Even if they choose to go the nanny route or staying at home, they need to make sure the nanny is aligned with their values and the person that they are. And then also just the school in general, what the school believes, and also what the parents and the children who attend the school believe. So
absolutely, yes,
all a team.
Because if you are a partner together in raising your children, then you have to feel like, you know, they're teaching these values, whether you're coming from a faith-based school or not. If you're going to a faith-based program, then you'll know that a lot of those values are built in, which is phenomenal. Right. And if not, then, you know, there's also other secular schools that still are trying to instill a foundation, a strong foundation, so that your child is growing into the individual that is set up for success at school, in all the ways, academically, socially, in all the ways. And so what do you think, Miss Dom, in terms of our school, what do you think are the core values that we want and we aim to instill in our kids, even at a really young age?
Yeah, so I feel like in each of our 5 classrooms, we instill the same values, just at different age-appropriate levels. I think one of the major ones we do is kindness and respect for each other, and also for teachers, teacher to teacher, child to child, all that. So kindness, respect, the parents to teachers. I think that's a huge one. Even if we have, you know, a slight disagreement between the team or a slight disagreement between a parent and a certain teacher, we make sure to really address it right away so that we keep that overall kindness and respect.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that is a good point, because just like at home and just like at school, when kids see how, like you're saying, teacher to teacher interactions are taking place, they're going to see disagreements that take place.
Yeah, of course.
They're going to see conflicts between teachers or parents. And all of that is natural. But how is it being handled? We can absolutely have disagreements, but how do we approach it in a way that we are respecting each party? We are hearing them out. We are accepting how they feel.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing, because every teacher's teaching style is so different. You can be in the same classes as your co-teacher. You guys could go to the same college or have the same upbringing in teaching, but your teaching style could be totally different. And of course, you know, like the age old saying, you can't, or you won't work well with everybody, but the way that you handle it. So I think that's something we do really well at, is that all of our teachers get along so well, because we have that respect for each other. And we know that even though so-and-so teaches math this way and I teach math this way, we can still share resources and share our lesson plans and talk about it, but then go and teach it differently.
Yes, I do agree with that. I think we have lots of opportunities for our teachers to collaborate and exchange ideas and benefit lesson planning styles from one another, but also there is opportunities for each teacher to shine and try things out. And I think the students are aware of all of that. They know you go for it, Miss Dom, because, you know, as teaching partners, you'll have those exchanges in front of your kids, just as if parents have in front. They know, they're aware, and so they can see the collaboration, they can see the flexibility and the understanding that takes place between teachers. Those are role models. Yeah. And so for them to witness that type of interaction gives them the ability to apply that in their interactions.
Yeah. And I love the saying that children are sponges, because they just soak up everything. They soak up everything in their surroundings. And so they're soaking up what their teachers are saying to each other, what their parents are saying to each other. They're soaking up what their parents are telling their teachers. Or, you know, the conversations, the body language, the mannerisms, everything, you know, things that you don't think of.
Yes. So you really want to see a healthy dynamic between teaching teams. And if you kind of see a spark between them and they're having a blast together all day long, then you know that your child is benefiting from that energy. Whereas if you see that there may be some tension, which is natural, again, how do they approach it and solve problems. But again, your child is going to be exposed to that, and that's okay. But again, how do we solve these problems? So that's super, super important. A huge one, which is in line, is problem solving. I think it's so important for kids, even from infancy. It's a major skill, is problem solving. When things get hard, when things get tough, when the solution is not clear, how do the kids approach the problem, and do they have the determination and perseverance and grit to see it through and try again?
Yeah. And something that I think I see a lot of teachers do, and parents, and even I myself catch myself doing this a lot, is intervening with problems. And really, when a problem is happening, that is the best time for a caregiver, a parent, a teacher to step back and let the children figure it out on their own, given that it's a safe environment. Of course, if it's starting to escalate and it might start to get physical, then yes, definitely intervene. However, if it's something as simple as they're playing with magnet tiles at the tables and one child knocked down this child's tower, and there might be some whining or some crying start to happen, but letting them figure it out and try to problem solve on their own before a teacher steps in. That's how they're going to learn how to problem solve. Yes. Because they will never learn how to problem solve if a teacher steps in and does it for them. And that goes for a lot of other things. If a teacher's constantly doing things, or a parent, if they're constantly doing things for the child, they'll never learn to do it themselves. But problem solving, especially, because that is a life skill that you need forever, they need to be learning how to do it. And something I heard the other day at our school was, a child took, a toy from the other one. They were like, hey, and then, they called the teacher's name, and the teacher said, what do you think you could do in this situation? And the child gave an answer, and she said, okay, try that. And he did it. And then the problem was solved. And so she guided it, but she didn't give the answer. Yes. And so that's huge.
Huge. So giving the children at appropriate ages, appropriate tools and skills to fall back on. And I really like letting the problem sit and letting them kind of feel how uncomfortable it is, and the emotion in the frustration or feeling how difficult the challenge is. Just a huge thing that we want our kids to learn is feeling comfortable with being uncomfortable.
And also being aware of emotions. So if things that I've said to children at times is, if one is crying and another isn't, and that's a perfect time to say, how do you think your friend is feeling? They're crying. So how do you think they're feeling? And that's a perfect time for, they're feeling sad. They're feeling angry. And that's a great way to teach emotions.
Yes. And I think that if you are in class and you see your friend crying, and if they can be attended to, we teach our kids that your class is a family. Yes. And so, just like the teachers are kind of models in terms of, caregivers and parent role model type of thing. You are family members to each other. You step into the classroom and you're automatically family. So how do you make your friends feel better? Yeah. How do you help your friends when you see that they're in need? Those are huge skills that they need to be aware of, to recognize in the first place, and then fall back on the skills to want to proactively help, to want to proactively be kind.
Yeah. And I'm seeing that a lot in our preschool classroom at the moment right now. Just the other day, we just came back from a break that we had. And of course, it's been a very emotional week for a lot of children and teachers and parents. And so a lot of the emotions when they're getting dropped off, a lot of them are crying at the same time. And I've just seen so many of our 2.5 and 3-year-olds going up to their friends that are crying and saying, it's okay. It's okay. We're at school. Daddy will come back later. Yeah. And they know that. And it's so sweet that a child is saying that to their peer. Yeah. And it's not, necessarily a teacher saying that. It's just so special to see that, because they know that they're a family in their class.
Yes. And they do. They really, really do. We've had kids just feel so at home here and call it their home and say, and they're just happy happy. You just know when your kids are happy and they feel secure and loved and they feel challenged and stimulated and are having fun.
Yeah.
And that's part of, because the teachers are allowing their kids to constantly grow. That's just the byproduct of growing as a child in so many different ways. So it's super exciting. Lastly, a huge value is having this is my life saying, yours is 90%.
I know.
90% of the brain is developed.
In every conversation ever, in every essay I've ever written ever.
For me, my mantra is to ignite a love and motivation for learning. And I believe that can take place early on when the kids are really, really little and as young as infancy and all the way up to kindergarten and beyond. So how do we train our kids to love learning? How do we train them to have a motivation to learn, to try their best every time, even if it's not a preferred activity? How do we teach them that your best is what's expected no matter what?
And motivation is huge because even older adults experience it, you know? And so instilling that so young, even in our infant classroom, is so huge. And, you know, allowing the child to get frustrated, again, not intervening quite when they start to get frustrated, and they're able to problem solve and be motivated to move on to the next activity. And like you're saying, if they're not doing an activity that they didn't necessarily enjoy, are they still trying and they still, you know, do the activity, and then maybe they move on to something that they do enjoy more, but at least they're still motivated to get through the activity.
Yes. They are still motivated to understand expectations, try their best, and, you know, you can leave it at that. You don't have to be stellar in everything, but teachers want to see that you care and that you want to try your best in everything. I mean, seeing how post-COVID and the consequences of, how kids really just lost their entire motivation for learning just and because adults do work with work and post-COVID, and how, you know, we lost a lot of that and we're rebuilding a lot of that now these years. I see it with my school age kids, and you're just rebuilding that from the ground up. And so we're in a really powerful role as educators in early childhood to build that from infancy on, because it's not an overnight thing. It takes thousands and thousands of exposures and trial and error and conversations for that to be built. And so if we're doing it at school and mom and dad and whoever caregiver is also doing it at home, then of course we're just setting our kids up for success.
Yeah, and that's why I, along with many other people, wish that the early childhood educator profession was respected more, because they are instilling that motivation and that love for learning so young that by the time they enter kindergarten, these kids, you know their ABCs and they are excited to sit down and write their name. And it's often overlooked that their early childhood teacher had a lot of help in that and a lot of say in that. And it's huge. Yes,
absolutely. And I think that it goes in line with a lot of what we talk about in terms of the education system has a lot that needs to be, you know, adjusted and shifted. Yeah. But really, if you look into a classroom at the preschool level and the early childhood education level, then you're kind of seeing little bits and pieces of things that would really translate well into school age in terms of when the kids step into the classroom, like for infants, when the kids step into the classroom, you get an infant care plan. We know your home life.
Yeah.
We get a snapshot of your home life. Same thing as toddlers. Even in all our classrooms, we have a really good relationship with parents, or at least we seek to have that so that we can cater to your child. And so I think that's what's something so special in early childhood that we offer that is not necessarily, there's not as much time and focus on that when your kid's in kindergarten or third grade and beyond. But in early childhood, it is, because it's just as critical. Yeah. And so having that home, that understanding of home life allows us to see, Johnny had an awful night. He's going to be really exhausted today. So letting Johnny have more time today will set him up for success. Whereas in third grade, if the teacher did not know that and push Johnny today, they're not going to get a great response. And so, but for us, we know that, and we know our kids so well. We know our kids inside and out. So we know when to push. We know when to guide more. Yeah. And again, it allows our kids to have more successful days. Yeah. And it allows our kids to feel more capable, and it allows teachers to feel effective. And so having that home life understanding is so crucial, and it's a highlight of early childhood that we should try to apply somehow to older kids as well.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about how when the teachers in early childhood education, when they know what's happening at home, or how they slept last night, or if they didn't sleep last night, then they know, okay, maybe I shouldn't try this harder lesson today because we just came back from a break and everybody's upset. Or maybe that golden time in the infant classroom when all of the babies are teething at the same exact time. The teachers know, yes, this is not the best time to challenge this certain child or this group of children. Yes. Let's put that on the back burner and try again next week.
Yes. That's so crucial, because that is opportunities for a more individualized approach. And a lot of times what is appropriate for one child or a couple of the students is beneficial to the class as well. And so it does take a lot of juggling for the teacher to recognize this is not the best opportunity for this. Let's put it on the back burner. Like you said, let's do music and movement right now. Yeah. That's just going to liven everyone up, put everyone in a good mood, and maybe we'll come back to the lesson because they are in the better mindset to do that. I think teachers in the school age classroom can have that ability, but it's just so hard because you are compounded by deadlines and periods and, class schedules and all that. Whereas in the preschool classroom, we have the whole day. And even though we have a plan, we can adjust and be flexible and be fluid in it so that the kids get the most out of it. Right. So that's huge.